iRacing right now.
He's got traction, he's going around the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top now!
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Sometimes you just got to lick the stamp and send it.
I don't know what happened on there. I just plucked her in first, gave some gen, and fuck yeah.
You are racing with other people. And if you no longer go for a cat that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
We go green for 40 minutes of racing around Monza.
Oh, defense by Ethan Grigol just getting so punchy.
And a brilliant getaway already from Josh Rogers.
Two pro drivers going at it here between Dylan O'Keefe and Nick Foster.
Stanaway's demoted to third. Webster wins week 9 here at Sebring through the final corner. That's a huge slide for Cooper Murray. Just trying to barge their way through, and that's whoa. That's a merry-go-round for Nick Burkett. Campbell, Paolo Gaon, and Ferraris behind. Glenn Wood actually was flipped into the barriers. One of the most exciting pirouettes I've seen in quite some time. That's Van Gisbergen, and his day is done. Tell you what, if Calvin wins this race, I wouldn't be surprised. He's all four wheels up the racetrack. He just saves it on the apex.
Contact almost made, side by side through the elevation change, and Scotty McLaughlin had the move done, but he got over the crest. And
What a send!
Dylan O'Keefe sends it up the inside, can't do anything with it.
Shane Van Gisbergen already on the attack.
It begins and sending has begun.
And it's going to be a drag race to the line. Tuesday night is rapidly becoming a night to lick the stamp. Send it.
Oh, I forgot I was helping commentate here. I was just sitting back in my jocks and
Biggest and best names of the real life and virtual motorsport worlds come together. Spectators from right around the world religiously tune in, and commentators come back from holidays early so they don't miss calling the action. That's right, everyone. It's time for stars of sim racing to channel their inner Daniel Ricciardo, lick the stamp, and just send it. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lockie Mansell. Welcome to Week 6, Season 2 of the Just Send It iRacing series, coming to you right around the world on SimSpeed TV. This week, it's a distinctly Italian flavour as we head to the classic Monza circuit in the Ferrari 488 GT3. Joining me in commentary tonight from across the ditch in New Zealand is David Sanford, who made his commentary debut on Just Send It last week. Good evening, David. How are you going?
Pretty good, mate. Thanks for having me on again. Some speed and nice to meet you, Lockie Mansell. I've obviously seen you online with all your commentary fame, so yeah, pretty good to be here.
Looking forward to having you on board once again. Now, last week you were commentating some TCR cars in action, I believe. Unfortunately, I missed that race, but by all reports and looking at the highlights, it was a pretty action-packed one. How are you seeing tonight panning out with the Ferraris?
Honestly, if you think last night was action-packed, we see people piling up in the pits. Honestly, if you think last week was action-packed, Lockie, you're in for a treat, mate. Hey, if it's alright, I just wanted to say something quickly that is quite important to a lot of sim racers around the world. A few days ago, something pretty devastating happened in the iRacing community. A very good sim racer by the name of Martin Solari sadly passed away. Martin Solari unfortunately lost his battle with the silent killer. That silent killer that I can guarantee everyone has been touched by in one way or another. Martin Solari was a driver for the team Williams Gym Esports. He competed on the world stage in the iRacing GT World Championship with cancer, and it's with a very, very heavy heart that we at SimSpeed send our condolences to Williams Gym Esports, his family, and also his friends, whoever they may be. I never knew Martin personally, But obviously, Lucky, we shared the same passion in motorsports and sim racing, and I think that's something that plenty of drivers tonight and viewers can agree with. So rest in peace, Martin. You'll be missed, mate.
Yeah, thank you for that, David, and from the entire team here at Just Send It and the wider online and esports racing communities, our condolences to go out to Martin and his family. Now, getting back to the racing action, and we saw there that was a mad scramble for everybody to get out of the pits, and that's because it's only a 10-minute qualifying session, and once again, we do have a jam-packed field of well over 50 cars that are all wanting to try and get themselves some clear track to get a lap time in. And once again, we've got some brilliantly presented cars out on the circuit, including the car that's on track on our screen at the moment, the number 22 car of the reigning Bathurst 12-hour champion, Matt Campbell.
Yeah, this is a pretty special special guest we've got. I was actually at that race, Lockie, last year, and that was, oh my god, the way he came back. Obviously that yellow flag, but the way he just pushed past that Aston Martin, and how fast was that that car over the top. And we see with the special, if anyone was a young person on the internet, this livery would touch their hearts. This is called the Nyan Cat. And a challenge that used to be back in, I don't know, about 10 years ago was to open up the website, Nyancat, and it would make this stupid little song. And the challenge was who can have it up the longest. So thanks, Maddie, for bringing back a bit of nostalgia.
So everybody's managed to get themselves into some fairly clear track space, but let's talk about the Monza circuit. We know that from our Formula One viewing experience that it's renowned as one of the fastest circuits on the Formula One calendar, but tonight's version of the track is even faster than the one that we see the F1 cars racing on, and that's because the first chicane has been removed from the layout. So where you would normally have that big stop at the end of the front straight to make the right and then the left-hand turn through that first chicane, that's not there. So you now just go straight ahead at that point. You don't actually turn until you get down to Curva Grande, which becomes effectively now the first corner on the racetrack. And the first slow corner then is what would normally be turns 2 and 3. So we're going to see lots of overtaking and perhaps a bit of chaos on the opening lap of the race, you would imagine.
Yeah, from experience of driving this track, it's not even turn 1 that's the bad one, because the track's a little bit wider and the chicane's a little bit easier to navigate. But the second chicane, there's no room for error. It's a one-car chicane. Now, these cars in the draft will probably hit about 290 kilometers an hour, which is really, really fast for a GT3. By themselves currently, they're hitting about 282, 283. We looked at what Justin Ruggier, one of our faster drivers here tonight, was doing. And it's going to be quite interesting. Turn 1, nearly 60 cars. They call it Just Send It for a reason, I think. So big shout.
Fastest driver in the session so far at the moment is Jackson Suzlin-Harlow. He was the winner last week in the TCR Audi RS3s. And interestingly enough, just having a look over the results from this second season of Just Send It, we've had a massive variety of race winners, a bit like what we saw in season 1. We've had 8 different race winners so far from the 8 races that we've had in season 2, because of course weeks 1, 2 and 3 all featured a double race format. So once again, a really good variety and diversity of drivers who've been fighting it out at the front of the field.
Yeah, there's something that's quite good about Just Send It. Like, a lot of the time it's pretty hard because you've only got a small selected time to do your qualifying lap too. So sometimes we see a lot of the faster guys having to come through the field, and then we can see random people up in the top 10 that aren't usually there because it is fixed setup. Everyone's on the same setup. We've got, Michael Rosenblatt, we've got Guy Leach, Mitchell Bolton in the top 10 currently, and as you can see, Lockie, a lot of people are quite off pace. So I'm going to pick that, hey, they haven't even done, what do you call it, representative laps yet. But in any case, this big drafting track, the racing is going to be fierce up the front. I'm quite excited.
Slipstreaming is going to be one of the key factors once we get into the racing, as Matt Campbell has to dodge a couple of cars spinning off the circuit in front of him on the exit of Curva Grande, and he somehow manages to make it through. And that is pretty important for Matt Campbell to have avoided that incident, because he is yet to have recorded a representative lap time.
He's the modern day John Bow by the looks of it. Yeah, you're absolutely right, and hopefully it looks, because iRacing just recently updated the off tracks for this track too. So if you lay a full tire on that AstroTurf on the exit of Lesmos 1 and 2, that's a 1x, and your lap is currently negated on Monza. I don't know why they did that, because I mean, I understand it, but it just makes everything that little bit harder. So it looked like Matty Campbell might have put a wheel off and might have been distracted by those guys, as we see someone spinning out right in front of us too. So he needs to sort of get a draft in. I feel like these faster guys are with a draft. Like Jackson's 3/10 on the field. You find 3/10 through draft.
Fixed setups, the rules, of course, in Just Send It, so there's no scope for the drivers to play around with the setup adjustments to try and get performance gains that way. It literally is race what you get given and do the best that you can with it. And like you say there, Matt Campbell's lap was invalidated that time through, so he doesn't have a lot of time left. Only 2.5 minutes to clock a lap time in this session, so a bit of pressure on Matt Campbell, although we see that lap has now been recorded, so he moves up into position 9.
Yeah, I'm actually quite surprised, because you saw his whole, nearly half of his car. So he must have been right on the border of that 1x territory. And hey, a second off the pace with what happened in front of him. More people off in the back, in the background. See, this track's going to be awesome with these fixed Ferrari GT3s. But yeah, Matty Campbell obviously put that lap in, and he's 1.1 seconds off the pace yet. Don't expect that that's going to be his time for the night. As we switch to Cooper Webster, who's currently sitting P2, he's right in the draft. He might be about 0.7, 0.8 behind the person in front of him, which is, it's sort of, you'd get about 0.1, 0.2 of a draft down these long straights, and hopefully he can claw in that 0.3 that he's got down on the Altus Esports driver of Jackson Jesus and Harlow.
A few other drivers who are yet to record lap times. Justin Rugia is a fair way back in the field. So too Josh Rogers and Jared Filsell, a couple of our front-running sim racing contenders. As I say that though, Justin Rugia has just moved up into position 7, punching out in 1 minute 38.4. So Rugia, who was one of the faster drivers in the pre-qualifying sessions, gets himself up into the top 10.
Yeah, something that also is to take note of in these fixed sessions. So the best thing is to just do laps. Get the tank down. GT3 tyres don't wear that much. They sort of have about a 3 or 4 lap window where you can absolutely set purples, especially on when everyone's on the same set. It's going to happen to everyone. So your tank gets a little bit lighter. As we see everyone slowing down, I'm assuming that's sort of for their big last hurrah as the time wears down with just 40 seconds to go, as we see Brenton Hobson rounding the last corner. Hopefully he can improve on his 0.8. He's off Jackson Susan Harlow here. What does he do? A 1:38.205. So he has moved up to P3. It's not P6 unfortunately, but I think that'll do.
For those of you who don't understand the reference, Brenton Hobson is infamous for being a competitor who very often finishes in 6th position in the various sim racing competitions, but he's actually been a winner in Just Send It in Season 2, so he has proven to be one of the front-running contenders in this second season of the Just Send It series. Now, the point that you were making there, David, about the drafting and the slipstreaming, you get the feeling that there are a few drivers there that were just trying to time their runs to get an advantage from slipstreaming on the final lap of the session. But you do have to be a bit careful, because while you might gain time in the draft of someone, they can very easily hold you up through the corners. As we see a massive crash involving Jackson Susan and Harlow. The car does a quadruple somersault with Pike in midair. And if you thought that the incident for Alex Peroni in the Formula 3 race at Monza last year was spectacular, then Jackson Susan Harlow has just taken that to a whole new level.
Oh, someone else in the background has gone to the moon too, Lockie. Someone's decided to take the first chicane. I'm not really sure who that was, as we were looking down the main straight. But here's Stephen Owen, a former supercar driver who drove with Jamie Whincup once upon a time. So he's coming down. He hasn't set a representative time yet. He looks a little bit off the pace. I'm not sure if he's gonna, even if this is his outlap or what. But he hasn't done anything yet. But he'd hope he had hoped to, and the checkered flag is out, so this will be the last time by. He's a fair way off the pace. Let's see what he does. He'll be about 2 or 3 seconds here. It's a 1:38.915, and it puts him into P13, which is not too bad for Steve Owen.
He's been one of the excitement machines of Just Send It, involved in a little bit of controversy in some of the previous rounds, it has to be said. But it's shaping up to be an interesting grid, but it looks like it's going to be Jackson Suzel and Harlow, our race winner from last week, who will start this one from pole position with Cooper Webster joining him on the front row of the grid.
Yeah, so as we move through, we've got Brenton Hobson and Andrew Collins in 3rd and 4th. Thomas Hinds and Thomas McMillan in 5th and 6th, and my graphics have gone away. There they are. Michael Rosenblatt and Arturo Baz in 7th and 8th. Mitch McLeod in P9 and Justin Rougier in P10. Lockie?
Couple of very experienced sim racers rounding out the top 10 there. It's Nick Coulson in 11th position, Jack Wittes in 12th, back then to Steve Owen in 13th position, Michael Cutterjar in 14th. Matt Campbell, he got relegated back to 15th position in the dying stages of that session. Then it's Ben McMillan from the Australian Racing Group, one of the management team behind the TCR Australia Series, out of 16th position. Job Stewart in 17th. Jeremiah Morton in 18th position, back to Josh Morris in 19th, and Simon Black completing your top 20.
And moving on to the 20s to 30s, we've got Jonathan Beekoff in 21st, Guy Leach with V8 Sleuth Esports in 22nd, Michael Bolton and Will Newell on 23rd and 24th, Shane Witt in 25th, Tyson McAvoy in 26th, Will Longmore in 27th, Glenn Morris 28th, Dave Douglas 29th, and Jeffrey Price in 30th.
Over the page, we go back to Stacey Walker out of position 31. Race Low, the Hype Projects car, out of position 32 on the grid. Brenton Caitler in 33rd position, back to Paul Rogers. Harrison Dengate in 35th spot. Bradley Wingard in 36th. Jamie Craig, who's one of the front-running competitors in the New South Wales Pulsar Racing Series, in 37th position, back then to Sam Christensen in 38th, Lee Burley in 39th, and Cody Mains-Rutty rounding out your top 40.
And in 41st tonight, we've got Lewis Bahajir. I don't know how to say that. I'm really sorry, Lewis. 42nd is Graham Fyland. Dave Trevethan in 43rd. Joshua K. Rogers. I'm not really sure who that is, but he's in 44th for Coanda Sim Sports. And Jared Philsell in 45th. Brady Myers, Matt Trotman, Michael Hammond, Trent Harrison, and Matthew Clowett round out your top 50.
Some big names that are going to be coming from a fair way down the order. Rounding out our field, Jackson Barry in 51st position, Simon Francis in 52nd, Luke Claver in 53rd position, back to David Crampton in 54th, and Toyota 86 Series racer George Gutierrez rounds out our 55 car field for week 6, season 2 of Just Send It here at Monza. Now, one of the announcements that we do have to make, last week we had a really cool prize up for grabs for one of our competitors within the top 10. And that prize, a hot lap, a passenger ride in an Audi R8 LMS GT3 car, the same types of cars that you'll see racing at the Bathurst 12 Hour in a few weeks' time. And that prize is going to go to Blake next. So congratulations, Blake. You have scored yourself a passenger ride in one of those very cool Audi R8s, and boy, do they have a star lineup of drivers for the Bathurst 12 Hour this year. It was announced today. Some of the best factory Audi drivers from around the world joining Australia's own Garth Tander in what will be a 3-car Audi assault on the Bathurst 12 Hour.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'll actually be camping with Blake Nick Lockie, so that'll be cool. Hopefully, you know, he can. Oh, and Blake Nick will be taking me through some really cool pit tours, I'm sure. We are coming down into the final turn as we roll around. This is an absolutely massive field. I'm really excited for turn 1. Well, is it turn 1? Can we call it turn 2 still, or turn 3? It's kind of distracting, isn't it?
I think we just call it Curva Grande for turn number 1, but it's pedal to the metal. Ferraris roar into life at Monza for week 6, season 2 of Just Send It, and our pole sitter Jackson Suzel and Harlow already waving left and right to try and break the slipstream of the cars that are queuing up behind. Normally you would be hard on the brakes at this point, not tonight. It's full steam ahead as they steam down their way into turn 1. And look at the outside move. Look at the commitment from Cooper Webster. He's trying to go the long way around the outside. We've got a spinner in the background. The battle will be on for the lead when we get down into this first chicane, and it's Webster who sends it down the inside of Suzel and Harlow, but he runs wide in the second part of the chicane, drops back into second position, and as we predicted, a bit of drama unfolding, a bit of contact between a few cars at the back of our shop there.
Yeah, looking back through the field as Cooper made that move through into the first, turn 2, there was a fair bit of carnage, as you can imagine, as even more carnage is happening through Lesmoth too. Jackson Susan Harlow here, though, he's kept his cool and he's managed to come away with about a half a second lead, I'm guessing, coming into the braking zone of the Parabolica, is it? Or what is it? It's Ascari, isn't it? Ascari. But yeah, hopefully, well, as you know, this track is massively draft heavy, so unless Cooper Webster drops the draft, I don't think that anyone. What am I saying? Unless Cooper Webster can stay in the draft, I don't think he's gonna catch Jackson Lockie.
And Steve Owen's gone off the road there at Ascari, and there was another car that was spinning off to the left-hand side of the circuit. A problem for Job Stewart, who spins and gets collected by another competitor, finds himself facing in the wrong direction. Backwards into the Armco he goes. That's all happening in the mid-pack. We turn our attention back to what's happening at the front of the pack, and this is a graphic indication of just how important slipstreaming is at this Monza circuit. Look at the advantage that Brenton Hobson is getting just by sitting in the toe of Cooper Webster as they run down into Curva Grande to commence lap number 2.
As we said before, we're on board when we were in a private chat. This is Thomas McMillan, the man himself. Now, if anyone likes to send it, it's Thomas McMillan. He's right on the gate of Brenton Hobson here. He's getting in the draft. He's probably getting a bit excited with Thomas Hins also behind him. You can see when we exited that final turn, Cooper Webster was 0.8. Now he's all the way up to 0.4. And that is literally because of the draft that is happening. So Jackson Susan Harlow is going to have to work super hard if he wants any chance. As we see, Matty Campbell, our Bathurst 12-hour in 2019, he's taken a bit of a shunt with Jeremiah Morton, who's trying his best to stay out of the racing line, I'm assuming. We'll just take a replay here and see exactly what happened. Matty Campbell just looked like he lost the rear a bit, and Jeremiah Morton didn't really have anywhere to go. It is an acceleration zone, and it probably would have surprised him, Lockie.
So that initial incident was Matt Campbell making a mistake all on his own. Unfortunately, as he eased his way back onto the racetrack, there was a car right behind that made contact with the rear of Campbell's car and sent him spinning off the circuit. Here's another angle of it. And unfortunately, Jeremiah Morton gets fired off to the right-hand side of the track. Both of those cars with a bit of damage that they will have to either come into the pits to repair or endure for the rest of the race. But the battle is on for a position within the top 5. Mitchell McLeod, who's come up 3 spots since the start of this race, is attacking on the back of Thomas Hins. Again, taking advantage by being well positioned in the slipstream as they head through Curva Grande. I don't know that he's going to be quite close enough, though, for when they get to the braking zone for the turn 2 and 3 chicane.
Yeah, so this seems to be like the runaway group, Lockie. There's literally 2 seconds splitting all the way down to 6th place. And Mitchell McLeod, yeah, he's 1.5 seconds behind it, but that's literally only because people are in between him and the leader. So he's right in that draft fest. Joshua Rogers has made it from about 50th on the grid, and he's now in the top 20, and there's 15 minutes to go. He's not actually that far behind, considering where he started. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do as Mitchell McLeod gets a bit of a slowdown, I think. So that's him dropping all the way out of that top group that we were just talking about. And now Michael Rosenblatt's in a bit of a void here because he's got 1.2 seconds in front of him for Thomas Hins. So unless he can set the laps of his life, I don't think he's going to be able to catch them in that draft train that is currently tagged onto the back of Jackson.
What he will need to hope there, Michael Rosenblatt, is that those cars in front get so engaged in battling one another that they slow each other down a bit and he can reel them in that way. But for those of you who are first-time viewers of the Just Send It series, we do have an award that we acknowledge at the end of each race, and we call it the Best Postman Award, and it's for the driver who makes up the most positions from where they started on the grid. And we talked about the progress of Josh Rogers. He's already made up 29 spots, but there's two drivers, Luke Claver and George Gutierrez, who have each made up 30 spots so far. So a few big movers in the early stages of this race.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we like to see in Just Send It. So I know personally making up all those spots really early is quite a bit of fun. So these guys will obviously be having fun and going for that top award. So we're currently on board with Thomas Hinz and Thomas McMillan. Thomas McMillan's in that beautiful livery that we've got there, and he's just going to make a move into Les Moss 2, gets it done. He gives him a bit of Morse code onto the grass, and Thomas McMillan's around. Thomas Hinz has just absolutely pit lane maneuvered Thomas McMillan, so that's pretty unfortunate. And it looks like that'll end his day, or at least his chances at coming in a top 5.
That was a bit 6 of one, half a dozen of the other there, because Thomas McMillan had the overlap. It started back a bit further. McMillan had the overlap as they headed into the right-hander. He'd actually done a really nice job through this section of the circuit just to get a slightly better run out of the corner compared to Thomas Hinz. He switched back to the right-hand side. You can see there that Hinz was having to cover the inside. McMillan was able to get the overlap. He made the move through under brakes. The problem was that on the exit of the corner, he didn't really give Hinz enough exit space. Hinz had to turn right to get back onto the racetrack because he had been forced off into the AstroTurf, and it was as he flicked the steering wheel to the right that unfortunately he made contact with the left rear of McMillan's car, and that resulted in McMillan getting spun off into the wall. But check out the battle that's on for the race lead. These top 3 cars have broken away, but they are absolutely nose to tail, and Cooper Webster starting to get impatient. Morse code on the rear of Jackson, Suzel and Harlow. They'll go side by side into the braking area for turns 2 and 3, and yet again it's Suzel and Harlow who holds on. Webster gets balked up, and it's Hobson who capitalises to move up into second position. Great racing between these top 3 competitors.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome coming into there. I thought Brenton Hobson for sure was going to put it 3 wide. Why wouldn't you in this series? I'll be interested to see how much of a slowdown that Cooper Webster has after cutting the course there, but I think he might have gotten rid of it. Something that's quite good about Monza is at such high speed that you can sort of, and there's not many corners, which triggers the black flag for slowdowns here. So you can sort of just drag off the throttle a little bit and get rid of it that way instead of having to brake on the circuit and lose a whole bunch of positions, which Cooper Webster's managed to do. So Brenton Hobson's only 0.8 behind Jackson, Susan Harlow, which is actually draft range, with Cooper Webster 1.2 behind, so this is not over at all. Thomas Hinz, after that little bit of a shunt that he had with McMillan, is 3 seconds back now, and we're on board in the tail cam. Oh, Brenton Hobson has absolutely done himself. He's just ruined that through the last corner, and he's going to drop all the way behind Thomas Hinz now. Let's just take a look at the replay on there. Brenton Hobson, he comes in. This is quite easy to do in these mid-engine cars, and he's just managed to outbrake himself and try and trail a bit too much, and it's locked those rear brakes and pushed them around.
Well, the fact that he's made that mistake, it's let Jackson, Suzel and Harlow off the hook. Suzel and Harlow now with a 1.1 second lead over Cooper Webster. Lap times last time around 138.7 for Suzel and Harlow compared to a 39.5 for Webster, who obviously had that slowdown moment through the second and third chicane. There's battles that are still going on in the mid-pack as well. Nick Coulson and Josh Morris. This is the contest for positions 9 and 10. Michael Cutajar not too far away either, just maintaining and watching brief in position 11 at this stage, and Josh Rogers continues his charge forward. He's up to 13th spot. David, do you reckon he can score a top 10 tonight from outside the top 50 on the grid?
I actually do. Josh Rogers will be about a second quicker a lap than the guys ahead of him, just because of his absolute, as he puts it on the grass. Okay, that just completely went out the window. So but I mean, everyone knows he's the best in the world currently at sim racing. So I wouldn't even guess within 2 or 3 laps he's going to be on, the likes of Justin Rougier and Josh Morris, Nick Coulson for that top 10 spot. So, and Hobbo's now in the wall after the horror lap. So that's yet another spot for Josh Rogers, I'd imagine, moving him up to position 12, right on the gate of Guy Leach. So he'll probably take him into that last corner, Lockie.
Yeah, it's the classic self-defeating psychological behaviour from a racing driver right there. You make one mistake, lose a bit of time, and then you fall into the trap of overdriving to try and make up for that lost time. And unfortunately for Brenton Hobson, that's exactly what has happened, and he's gone from contending for a spot inside the top 3, potentially even the race victories, now being outside the top 10.
Yeah, so that's quite unfortunate, and you can see Michael Cuttajar now in this little battle pack with Nick Coulson and Josh Morris. This is what Josh Rogers has to. It was a bit of a tongue twister. Josh Rogers, having to chase down as we look back. Looks like Josh Rogers has gotten past Guy Leach pretty easy. Justin Rugia is right in front of that other battle pack, just about a second ahead. He's just managed to break away a little bit. I think that's more so because these guys are battling pretty hard. They're sending it too wide and everything like that. So it's just allowing Justin to pull that gap quite a bit. If we look back to the front too, I don't think Jackson's actually going to lose that lead. As I say that, he drops about a tenth, but I don't think Jackson's going to lose much of a lead. So unless he makes a massive mistake somewhere, like a sideways moment through one of the chicanes, Cooper might not be able to catch him, Lockie.
Cooper Webster's going to have to really maximise every little bit of performance that Ferrari's got if he's going to catch up to Jackson, Suzel and Harlow. The gap is just on a second between first and second, but the key thing here for Cooper Webster is he needs to get within slipstream range. We've just seen how much of an advantage it is if you can get yourself close enough to the car in front, then you can take advantage from the draft, and that's what Cooper Webster needs to be focusing on at the moment.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So I'm pretty much backing that Cooper's going to be doing the lap, or trying to be doing the laps of his life, while Jackson's also going to be doing the laps of his life, because as soon as Cooper gets in 0.8, 0.9 sort of thing, which is where he is now, he's going to start feeling that draft. So as we look back at this pretty cool battle pack, they send it almost 3 wide into Curva Grande. It almost looks like they're coming in sideways sometimes here, eh? It's like the rear just wants to go around at 290 kilometers an hour and send them into the fence.
So Josh Morris losing one spot and at risk of losing a second spot as Michael Cuttajar tries to line him up through the turn 2 and 3 chicane. And look at who this is allowing to close in. Josh Rogers is caught right up to this battle group now as well. Won't be long before Rogers is scything his way past a couple of other cars. Josh Rogers has got Brenton Hobson not too far behind him as well. The smart thing here for Brenton Hobson might just be to try and follow Josh Rogers past some of these cars. As we see Morris, having been overtaken by Coulson, now trying to recover that spot on the run up to Ascari, and he might just about do it here as well. Nice move around the outside. Josh Morris gets back the spot that he lost a few corners ago.
Yeah, so that was a pretty good move. As Josh Rogers now, he's moved up right on the back of Michael Cuttajar. He's probably going to send it into the last corner here. Michael Cuttajar going a bit defensive, but I'm picking Josh Rogers. His class is going to go right around the outside. He'll know exactly the throttle application that needs to happen, and then he's going to get in this draft behind Nick Coulson and Josh Morris and just pull away. What a pass from Josh Rogers. So that moves him into our top 10 spot. He is now 34 positions up from where he started. He started on 44th, P44. He started 44th on the 44th grid. How many times do you want to hear the number 44? So that moves him up 34 spots as he's going to take another look around the outside at Curva Grande, which is our new turn 1, and this will be another spot in the matter of 30 seconds.
Less than that. Oh, there's been contact. We've got another incident as well. There was a car that was parked in the middle of the road, but big incident there involving Josh Morris, who has now got damage and finds himself parked on the right-hand side of the circuit. Nick Coulson's been involved in that one as well. So, unfortunately, some damage there involving those cars that were battling so vigorously for position. Let's watch it on the replay. So, Morris was on the outside. Rogers as well. Now, was there contact? Because Rogers was right in the slipstream of Morris. If there was, it was only very slight, but through Curva Grande, you are so committed through there, it would only take the slightest graze to knock the car in front into a spin. No, Morris has done that on his own. The camera shot on board Josh Morris shows that he's made that mistake all by himself.
Yeah, so he hit the inside grass, and as soon as you hit grass on those GT3 cars, the traction control doesn't really like it. So that moves after all of that. After all of the shunts that we saw, that moves Josh Rogers up to 8th position, which will now put him up to 36 positions gained on the day. Cooper Webster, however, is right on the back of Jackson Susan-Harlow, and this is looking like a pretty juicy finish with just 5 minutes to go. So Thomas Hinz has dropped way back. He's 4 seconds back, but Michael Rosenblatt's done an awesome job to catch up to Thomas Hinz after McMillan and Hinz had that collision. Arturo Baz in P5 with Mitchell McLeod trying to chase him down for that top 5 spot. Justin Ruggier is still about 13 seconds behind, and Josh Rogers trying to chase him down. Brenton Hobson's in 9th, and Michael Cuttajar currently rounding out your top 10.
It's on for the lead. He came from a bit over a second behind a couple of laps ago to now being right on the tail of Jackson Susan-Harlow. It's setting up for a grandstand finish here in Just Send It. Cooper Webster is going to throw everything that he's got at Susan-Harlow in the fight for victory. Both of these drivers, former race winners in Just Send It. Susan-Harlow, the winner last week. Cooper Webster, a 3-time winner from Series 1. The fight's going to come right down to the wire between these two Ferrari pilots.
Yeah, so this is looking like an awesome finish. Just 4 minutes left, and Cooper Webster's right in that draft. Jackson Susan-Harlow is getting on that white line fever, something that we see quite a lot in rugby union. So he should hold tight unless Cooper Webster can do the under-over. Can he? No, he can't. He gets a pretty good exit though. I'm assuming he's going to cut back inside that draft and just go all the way down into Curva Grande.
Look at Susan-Harlow starting to wave. He knows that he doesn't want Cooper Webster to get in the slipstream. Webster, in the end, though, pulls out. He'll be on the outside as they head down to the end of the main straight, the long, long main straight. Can he go all the way around through Curva Grande? You would have to be mega committed to make a move through there.
Lap car.
Oh, the left car might just get in an awkward position, but Cooper Webster's still going to be on the inside when they get to the braking zone for the turn 2 and 3 chicane. Side by side they go. Webster looking for the switchback. He'll now be on the right-hand side and have the inside line for the next couple of right-hand corners. Excellent textbook driving there from Cooper Webster, and he makes the passing move through to the lead, but Susan-Harlow will be fired up and will want to fight back.
Yeah, that was a pretty awesome bit of toe-to-toe action with that lap car in there especially. I thought that lap car was going to have more of a role to play. But the question has to be said, is Jackson actually letting him past? I know he's not letting him past, but I don't think he's going to argue with being behind him on such a draft-heavy track, because Jackson could have gotten caught out while being in that lead position with Cooper Webster, who's a fast driver in himself. 2 minutes to go on this racetrack. Will Jackson just be planning to sit behind him as he puts half of his car on the grass for that? So that totally negates what I was saying. Matty Campbell has just had the shunt of his life. Let's just see a replay of this. So he tries to come through what we now know is turn 2, and he's just sort of T-boned someone coming out of the exit, and he's just that's where it happened. I didn't quite see who that was. Trent Harrison, one of the organisers. With Paul Rogers pulling away and making a few spots out of that. So a few of the Just Send It organisers getting involved with it, and I don't even know what to say, Lockie. This is your turn.
Ben McMillan getting caught up in that one as well. I've just noticed as well on the timing that Justin Ruggier has gone tumbling down the order outside of the top 10, so unsighted by us. He's had an incident as well. The battle for the lead continues. And the thing here is that Thomas Hinz is almost 4 seconds behind. So realistically, it is a battle between these two. Oh no! Contact, and it's going to take out Susan-Harlow. A lapped car that was having its own incident has collided with one of our race leading contenders, and Susan-Harlow is out of business.
You wouldn't read about it. That is, well, you probably would. How often do you see a lap car in iRacing causing havoc at the front of the field? So that is super unfortunate for young Jacko. He'll be livid over that one. Cooper Webster, he'll be running away with this race. He'll feel like Scotty McLaughlin by running away with this one. So I don't even know what to say about that. What do you do? You can't do anything, Lockie. That's just so unfortunate.
It just looked like sheer bad luck, unfortunately, for Jackson Susan-Harlow, who was right there in the position to keep the pressure on Cooper Webster and be fighting for victory all the way to the finish. What it has done, though, is it's shaken up the order among our top 5 competitors. We do now begin our final lap. Thomas Hinz has moved up to second position. Michael Rosenblatt up to third spot. Mitchell McLeod and Arturo Baz battling it out for positions 4 and 5. And Josh Rogers has made up 38 positions to be sitting inside the top 6. But can you believe that as things stand at the moment, he's still not going to get the Best Postman award? That's going to go the way of Luke Claver, who has come up 40 positions from 52nd on the grid up to 12th.
Yeah, that's a pretty good job, and it's pretty unfortunate for Josh Rogers that he isn't going to get that Postman award. But this battle looks to be on between Arturo Baz and Mitchell McLeod. Mitchell McLeod had that lead coming down into the first chicane, the first corner rather. But obviously, as you know, I'm thinking the same as before. Mitch McLeod looks like he's got to slow down. He's just dropping off a little bit, unfortunately. So he might have to just settle for P5 unless he has the run of his life through Ascari, which would make everything a little bit juicy coming into the last corner. So we could probably look through the field, I think. So we've got people like Guy Leach as someone's backing out onto. This is going to cause havoc. There's a car parked on the exit of Ascari, which is really, really juicy. I love this series. Cooper Webster rounding the final corner though. Thomas Hinz seems to be mucked up at the back, but Cooper Webster will be your race winner for round 6 of Just Send It as he flashes his lights coming under the bridge, and he takes the victory here at Monza. Thomas Hinz in P2, Michael Rosenblatt, Arturo Baz, Mitchell McLeod crossing the line in P5. Joshua Rogers makes it all the way up to 6th, so that is 38 positions on the day. But as we said before, he won't get that most positions gained award. Guy Leach and Dave Douglas rounding the last corner now. So what do you reckon of the race tonight, Lockie? It's been pretty entertaining. There was, honestly, there wasn't as many shunts as I thought there would be, mate.
It was good. It was particularly intense between those top 3 drivers for so much of the race. Just to see Jackson Suzlin, Harlow, Cooper Webster and Brenton Hobson going at it nose to tail for so long was really good quality motor racing. It was just a shame that Brenton Hobson made a couple of mistakes to take himself out of the running, and then Suzlin Harlow getting tangled up with that lapped car as well was a great shame, because you had the sense that it was going to be a battle that was going to come right down to the final lap between him and Cooper Webster. But very well done to Cooper Webster. It's his first race victory of season 2, but it's his 4th in the history of Just Send It competition to continue his status as being the top performing driver in the Just Send It series.
Yeah, so we can see the results on page, as I said, as they cross the line. Cooper Webster takes the win here at week 6 at Monza. Thomas Hinz in P2. Michael Rosenblatt in P3. Arturo Baz P4. In position 5, Mitch McLeod, Josh Rogers making up 38 positions on the day. He is in P6. Michael Cuttajar in P7. Brenton Hobson's in P8. Dave Douglas in P9. And Guy Leach rounds out your top 10.
And just confirming as well, coming home in 12th position, Luke Claver. He picks up your Best Postman award for week 6, season 2 of Just Send It, from 52nd on the grid up to 12th spot, a gain of 40 positions. Trent Harrison as well, good to see one of our series organisers there inside the top 15. And Andrew Collins, who was involved in an incident on the very first lap of the race, recovering to finish in 19th position.
Brenton Kettler in 20th position today. He was nearly lapped, but he just managed to stay in front of everyone. Josh Morris, who was unfortunately hit the grass and speared off into the wall, which we thought was someone else's fault, which obviously it wasn't. 22nd, Josh Peacock, Matty Trotman in 23rd. Job Stewart, unfortunately, having a big shunt early on. He ends up in 24th. Will Newell in 25. 26th is Simon Francis. 27th, Josh Gutierrez. 28th, Graham Filand. 29th, Lee Burley, and 30th, our maybe race winner tonight, who was taken out by a unfortunate crash in Lesmos 1, is position 30.
Running down through the rest of the finishes, Justin Rougier in 31st position. He ended up 2 laps down there at the end. Matt Campbell in 32nd. He had a few incidents tonight. Bradley Wingard, 33rd. Back to Harrison Dengate, Brady Myers, Lewis Agar, and then Reece Lowe, David Crampton, Jamie Craig, and Ben McMillan, your top 40.
You did better at saying Lewis's name than I did, Lockie. But 41st is Nick Coulson tonight after a few crashes near the end. 42nd is Cody Mains Ruddy. 43rd, our helpful session hoster tonight, Simon Black. 44th is Jeffrey Price. Thomas McMillan coming fatally crashing into the wall as he's 45th. 46th, Longmire, Mr. Will. 47th, Jackson Barry. Jared Filsell not managing to finish either. 48th. 49th is Tyson McAvoy. And 50th, rounding out your top 50 tonight, Mitchell Bilton, rather. He manages to get that top 50, Lucky.
And over the page, the drivers who were involved in incidents early in the race and didn't complete a lot of laps: Shane Witt, Steve Owen, Jack Widders, Michael Hammond, and Matthew Clowett, rounding out the 55 participants in this evening's instalment of Just Send It.
Yeah, so I quite enjoyed tonight. Big congratulations to Cooper Webster, and thank you to the supporting sponsors tonight. There's the Melbourne Performance Centre, SimWorks Race Simulators, Erebus Motorsports, Jack Technologies, Digital Marketing Tribe. So they're the guys that help us get along with all of our pretty much everything that goes on. Obviously, some of our drivers tonight are involved with Erebus Motorsport. So thank you very much to them, Lockie. So and thank you for having me on once again.
Been an absolute pleasure, and we'll be back next week for another episode of the Just Send It online sim racing series. Thank you for your company right around the world this evening on the SimSpeed TV network. My thanks once again to my co-commentator David Sanford. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Lockie Mansell. See you next week. Bye for now.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now. He's got traction. He's going the outside of both of them. Maloney. Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to him. Oh my God. Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no. That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?